Welcome to the best Rewind Hardpoint guide on YouTube. My name is Pawn, and I'll be breaking down everything you need to know so that you can dominate on Rewind. I want to quickly thank you all for 50 subscribers. Your support keeps me motivated to keep making videos. I noticed that about 85% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you're enjoying the content, consider hitting that subscribe button. It's free, helps my channel grow, and ensures you won't miss any future videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start by taking a look at the overall structure of Rewind by breaking the map up into 5 zones. First, the spawn zones on each end of the map. Whenever you need to flip or hold spawns, it is important to keep a player inside the spawn zone. The player who holds down the spawn is usually referred to as the anchor or the blocker. Next to the spawn zones are the transitional zones. If you want to keep the enemy team in their spawn, you'll be looking for kills as they cross through these zones. Finally, the mid zone, which holds the P1, P3, and P5 points. Typically, the team with better positioning and communication will do better on these points. This map is unusual because the offensive side of the map is tilted at an angle, which creates a triangular transitional zone. The triangular zone stretches out 2 of the lanes and shrinks the 3rd lane, unlike on the defensive side where all 3 lanes are the same distance. This makes it very quick to get from spawn to mid on the top side while making it take much longer on the bottom side. You'll want to keep this in mind when choosing a lane out of spawn or when you're pushing into the spawn. With all this considered, our goal will be to keep the defensive spawn for all points except during P3 and P4 where we want the offensive spawn instead. For holding P1, the anchor player should play towards the top side of the spawn zone, watching the street and the drive-thru for flankers. You'll want to keep this spawn for P1 and P2, so this player needs to stay alive in the spawn zone. The rest of the team should set up inside the building and focus on keeping the enemy team from entering through the glass or generator room. If your team is struggling to get the map control needed to hold this point, instead focus on keeping the point white and holding the P2 spawn. Remember the triangular zone we talked about earlier? If your team starts the match on this side, you'll want to use the extremely short lane at the top of the map to your advantage and push down the street as quickly as possible to try and flip spawns. Getting the good spawn for P2 is very important, so don't prioritize getting P1 time until you've flipped spawns. Going into P2, it's very important that your anchor player holds down the back trash area. This spot lets them anchor the spawns while providing cover fire on the street. With 1 player on time, the other 2 players should cut off any pushes across the mid zone through movies or generators. When P2 is almost over, your team needs to push across the map and focus on flipping spawns for P3. If you didn't get the good spawn for P2 by the time it starts, you'll find yourself in a tough spot. This hill can be very difficult to break, so it is important that you push this hill as a team. If you're able to make it across to the enemy spawn, stay alive at all costs and wait for your team to push up the map before trying to break the point. Be careful to not push this point too late, because the good spawn will change for P3 and P4. Just like P1, this hill can be chaotic and difficult to hold. Your primary focus here should be keeping the spawn, so it is very important your anchor player stays in the back. If your team is able to get a player on point, keep the enemy held back by setting up in the courtyard and P1 positions. If your team is spawning on the other side of the map, your primary focus should be to flip spawns. Because of how small the transitional zone is at the top of the map, it can be very easy to flip spawns if the enemy team doesn't have control of the street. Find a lane that the enemy doesn't have covered, get a player in the back, and prioritize flipping the spawns as soon as possible. The team that starts with this spawn will almost always win the entire hill. As long as your anchor player is alive in the back and 1 player is on time, the other 2 teammates should focus on getting map control and keeping the enemy held back. When P4 is almost over, your team needs to push across the map and focus on flipping spawns for P5. When the enemy team is properly set up, P4 can be very difficult to break. If you can, use the shorter side of the map to your advantage. If you are able to get a player in the back, they should focus on staying alive at all costs, especially if the enemy team has multiple players stacking the point. Although P5 is in the mid zone, it can be easy to defend with proper positioning. Keep your anchor player towards P2 while your support players can play inside the building. This positioning allows your team to hold the enemy back and spawn while also guarding each entrance to P5. If necessary, the support players can push into P5 to pick up any trades. Breaking the P5 hill is all about using every available route. Pushing this point as a team while each taking separate routes is an effective way to disorient the enemy team and break the point. Be sure that if you are able to break this point, your anchor player pushes all the way through to get the good spawns. That's my full Rewind Hardpoint guide. Whether you're a solo player or a 4-man squad, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Finally, let me know in the comments below what you thought about the video and what type of video you would like to see next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.